I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. Today is Monday, May 1, 2023. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Before I begin, I want to tell you, stick around. We've got a great show today, three great colleagues, partners that you'll be pleased to learn more about, to engage with, talking about food. Who doesn't want to talk about food? And we're talking about books and literacy, and we'll round out the show today talking about sports with Coach Leah. My guests today include Brother Claude Booker. He is the creator of a company called Soul Food Starters, and we'll learn all about that. After that, we're going to talk to a guest who's been here before, but a favorite, Mary Terrace, is an educator who's teaching us how to stretch our minds through literature. She owns a bookstore and a book publishing venture. We'll talk about that. Well, before we do that, I want you to support this program, this work, by going over to our YouTube channel, Insight News YouTube, and becoming a subscriber. Now, you might be checking us out through the YouTube page of Black Press USA. We're members of the National Newspaper Publishers Association and its network, streaming network on Black Press USA. You could be checking us out on the Black Press USA Facebook page or the Insight News Facebook page. We also are connecting with some of you on LinkedIn and others of you on Twitter. Whatever the method or modality for your engagement, we thank you, number one. But take a minute in the course of today's program or after and go over to the YouTube Insight channel and be a subscriber. Tell everybody you know to join us here as well. Well, I wanted to say that today is a special day. It's May Day, and that's really cool. What does it mean? Let me pull my notes up here. May 1 has a lot of significance for a lot of people. And among them, it's just the general beginning, of the year. So my notes say that, despite this being a holiday with a longstanding tradition, May Day is now mostly celebrated as International Workers' Day, or kind of like a Labor Day since the 19th century in many countries and around the world. Every year on May 1st, this holiday is meant to honor the achievements of the labor movement and workers and to advocate for workers' rights and fair labor practices. However, long before it became associated with working classes, May Day was a celebration of nature and the beginning of summer, as the day falls between the spring equinox and the summer solstice, that since Roman times. The brief history can be traced back to the ancient pagan celebrations and the arrival of spring with various rituals and festivals, including things like picking flowers and making floral garlands, setting up a maypole, crowning a king or queen of May. That was an ancient Celtic festival. Sometimes they involved lighting bonfires and dancing and feasting. So all around, May Day is celebrated. Well, what do you do now? Because there are a wide variety of origins, May Day now is celebrated in several distinct ways around the world, according to your culture and your heritage. In some countries, today is treated as a public holiday, marked by protests and marches and demonstrations to honor and advocate for workers' rights. But others, mostly European, for example, still carry on the Spring Festival tradition, which includes outdoor festivals, events, and fairs. Well, whatever you do, it's a good day to check it out. May Day, today, May 1. And then I got another interesting story to share with you, and it's about a woman who went into business, started a business today, or not today, but recently, that is exceptional. And the business is cool. This is a 43-year-old woman who used her life savings to start a bar that she calls the Sports Bra. What do you mean? Well, Jenny Nguyen signed this lease to create her dream bar. She wasn't sure it was going to last more than a few months, but she was at 43 determined that she'd create the first of its kind establishment in Portland, Oregon. And now she's celebrating the first anniversary, and she named her bar, her sports bar, the Sports Bra. And it's named that because this is a bar that only plays women's athletic events on the bar's TV. It's a sports bar, televisions, right? But all you see on all the screens, women's sports. Well, good for her. A great idea. And we wish her success so far. The story that I'm reading from CNBC says that she's made almost $1 million in the first 8 months of her existence. Looks like she's on a roll. So kudos to her, and kudos to the idea of going for it, going for the dream, and deciding that you could make it happen. I had one more item that I wanted to bring up in our hot topics today, and that was, let's see, I've misplaced my notes here. But you know what? We'll stop right there for hot topics. Let me go into my guest right away. And the first guest I want to bring in is Brother Claude Booker. And Claude Booker and his wife started a company called Soul Food Starters. It's a novel idea. Well, maybe novel, maybe not, but it's a great idea. And it's one that's bringing the best of soul food to all of us everywhere in retail. Not here in Minnesota yet, but hopefully soon will be. First of all, Claude Booker, welcome to the program. Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk with you.
Well, we're excited to have you here. And let me just have you introduce people. Brother Booker, can I call you that?
You can.
Okay. Brother Booker, let me have you introduce the Soul Food 101. What's the concept? What's the vision? And, just how does it work?
So the vision was to first, I wanted to be able to create something that spoke really to Black folk. And when you think culinary and food, when you're thinking African American, you think soul food. Hundreds of years of oral culinary history that, has been passed down. And so I wanted to demystify that. And so what I did was I created a way that you could, with our mixes, easily prepare soul food, no matter if you're the most experienced cook or a novice. And the magic was, for example, like the mac and cheese, the milk, the eggs, all of the love that's in there that's essential for making that custard we put in that mix. All you do is add your water, cook your noodles, add your cheese, bake it. And as we say in South Carolina, it's mama nem, which means it's approved. And so it was really just focusing on a way to be able to capture authenticity when it came to soul food, to have everybody celebrate it.
Let me tell our viewers a little bit about you, Brother Booker. You grew up in Spartanburg, rural Spartanburg, South Carolina, and your bio says you ate home-cooked meals made with vegetables from Grandma's 4-acre garden, livestock raised on a neighbor's farm, or quails and other animals from hunting expeditions. And, you call yourself proudly country to the core, but also classically trained. You attended and attained an Associate of Science degree in Culinary Arts, a Bachelor of Science in Food Service Management, and a Master of Science degree in Managerial Technology. And so you've also created, this is with your commitment to giving back, the Booker's Soul Food Education Fund, which you house in Spartanburg County Foundation. And the goal is to donate to this 501c3 charity, to charities that support Black education causes and programs throughout America. And so the idea, and it's a great idea, you're telling people, customers, buyers, purchases, that every time you enjoy a Booker's Soul Food Starter Kit, part of your purchases will help Black Americans attain quality education. You're giving meaning to the concept that this soul food is genuinely good for the soul in every way imaginable. That's great. That's wonderful, man. And so, talk about growing up, your approach to food and why you decided to go into the food business.
So, in rural South Carolina, everybody, had a garden. You had a little bit of patch of land, and I jokingly listened to some of my friends who grew up in an urban environment, city boys, as I like to call them. They would talk about, sometimes being hungry, and I would joke and say, well, in the South, as long as you scratch some dirt, you never went hungry. You might have not had on your plate what you wanted, but you always ate because you always were able to grow something. So I grew up growing okra, you name it, I planted it. And I had a very rural upbringing. My father, I can't see folks doing it now. I had a 14 shotgun at the age of 10. My mama would say, and my nickname was Pokey, and she'd say, Pokey, just be home before dark. But, now with kids, you're like, don't shoot your brother, So I grew up in just that old fashioned, way of just, drinking out of the water spigot,
Mm-hmm.
It was just playing in the woods. It was just a good upbringing. And then I wound up being a standout football player, had several football scholarships. But I fell in love with cooking. My father would let me, and my grandmother let me stand on a step stool, a little wooden stool, because I was fascinated with cooking. And I turned down all of those football scholarships to go to culinary school.
Wow.
Now that was before Food Network and being a chef was sexy.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So folks were like, Booker, my wife will teach you how to cook, son. Go play ball.
Right.
So I was blessed to go on to culinary school, follow my dreams. And then after I got my associates, Johnson & Wales, which is one of the top culinary schools in the country, liked what I was doing, and I became the university's first Black teaching assistant, which I was proud of that. And then, one of the things I was known for was teaching the students how to carve ice. I was an exceptional ice sculptor, and I love coaching the kids in that. So food has just been my passion.
So South Carolina is known for good food, period, right? Talk about the food culture. You say it's in your passion, or it's been your passion. Talk generally about food culture in South Carolina.
So it's so regional. So I grew up in what you would call the foothills. So, Spartanburg, Greenville, Union, Gaffney, that area, we're more mountainous. So our cuisine was really more, hunting, fishing, but I was blessed to go to culinary school in Charleston. Mm-hmm. And the thing about the Charleston region of South Carolina cooking, it has such a West African influence with the red rice to emulate, the jollof rice and stuff. A lot with okra and a lot from the sea, with the seafood. So you've got two really different cuisines. And then the middle of the state with Columbia, South Carolina, Orangeburg, heavy barbecue. Now, barbecue is prominent throughout the South, but in that middle of the state, like say Columbia, South Carolina, Orangeburg, heavy barbecue. It's Bubba country, and I tell folk, when you talk about white folk in South Carolina, they are so closely, married to understanding soul food because African Americans, we were the cooks.
Yes.
And so they're just so comfortable with soul food that antebellum South, they don't know what's Southern or what soul food.
Generally down south, white people eat what black people eat.
That's
what right. I think is different here. I'm in Minnesota, right? So there's a distinct distinction between Norwegian food and Swedish food and German food that predominates, the cuisine here. But I have discovered when I'm down south, my wife is from Mississippi, my mom's family from Mississippi as well. When you're down south, everybody eating the same food, and
That's right.
everybody can fix it too. Maybe some better than others, but it's common in the culture.
And you make such a great point. But the beautiful thing about soul food, when I first created this brand and to get acceptance from these retailers, because through God's favor, we've been blessed. We're in over 1,100 Krogers. To date, we're in about 3,000 retail doors. And to be 18 months old, that's a blessing.
That's amazing.
But what was powerful was soul food for Black folks made us a national brand, which meant it was national acceptance. And I went all in, Al. And when I was meeting with these buyers and they say, give me the data. And at first I was concerned that data, if I didn't speak to it correctly, that they were like, everybody doesn't want that. But once I got that Nielsen data and found out Black folk, we over-index in everything, especially the grocery store, 14%, but we got a 26% grocery spend. It was easy. It was easy because in California, Nebraska, I laughed last week. We sent so much product, to Idaho. I was shocked. I didn't know Black folk were in Idaho.
So your customer is not just Black, but primarily, who's your target customer?
Our target customer is African American women.
Okay.
And mainly because they're my village. They're my support. And if it's right, and we knew it was right, I jokingly kind of marry it a little bit like going on to Apollo. If you're a comedian, you got 20 seconds before you get booed off.
That's
and so when you tell Black folks, particularly Black women, that you got a starter for soul food, they skeptical, and so when you win them.
You're so right. I'll say this. I went to a new restaurant a few days ago and, wasn't planned, brought some food home, and that 20 seconds, I think 1 spoon in 10 seconds, my wife said, get rid of it. So
that's right.
You are right. That's how discerning and how refined, the food sense is in our community, but in Black women in particular. You're right. Well, on your right there, I think you've got some product displayed.
That's right.
Can you show us something?
Yeah, and so I've kind of got some real close to show
Okay.
you. Old country.
Walk us through it. Let's do some selling.
Yeah. So we've got 4 flavors. I'll go over the flavors first. And our number one seller is the sampler pack, and everybody.
These are all dry foods or frozen?
They're dry mixes, which kind of, I don't want to say it freaks everybody out, but they're blown away because their mind saying this can't be right, and they be like, "Oh my God, he did it." So we've got a peach cobbler that's got everything in it: natural vanilla, all the love. All you do is follow the simple instructions in the back. We tell you all the prep ingredients. We've got candy yams, mac and cheese, and this mac and cheese, like I said, it's got the milk, eggs, all the seasoning, because you live and die by that custard. That custard ain't right. It can be too eggy. The mac and cheese ain't going to be right. So you can do whatever you want. You can do a faux cheese. I grew up with that government cheese, that block. So I like cheddar because that's what the government gave us back in the day. And then our number one is the collard greens because we've got chicken stock in there. We've got the apple cider vinegar. So we basically are removing all of those ingredients that you would have on your counter. And we've made it easy, but you still get to feel like you cooking. See, you can't fake soul food.
And so
it is what it is.
Basically, is it like freeze drying or just drying? What, dehydrating? I mean, how does it work?
Yeah. So here was the thought process when we created the product. I knew that I would have to find a very good food science production kitchen, because I had to be all natural, clean label and all that. And so I prepare all the items in the culinary lab with this team. And then I said, now let's pull all of the water out. Because everybody's got what I call pipe stock, right? You got water at your house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we did. So all you do for most of the items, like the mac and cheese, you're triggering it with water. Because we put the milk, the eggs, and eggs right now are so expensive. You can buy a house with 8 dozen eggs. I joke and say that. So that was the magic, and it's been exciting. And we did it for another reason: is the ability for Black folk to grow a brand now. It's so much easier than it was 15, 20 years ago. We're in a digital world.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is adopt a digital mindset, and you can reach everybody all over the country. And that's what we're doing.
All over the world, really. Yeah. When we grew up, Brother Booker, our parents told us, stay in the neighborhood, and your neighborhood was from the corner to the alley. Don't cross the street. But nowadays, the whole world is our neighborhood because of what you just said, digital technology. We have the ability to connect with each other and with markets all over the planet. And it's a new day. So I think you're absolutely right. So let me ask you a couple of last questions here. How can families balance the convenience of modern living with the importance of preserving the cultural significance and connection that comes from preparing and sharing soul food together? How does that work from your point of view?
What a great question. It was one of our taglines, bringing families back to the table. The number one thing I'd say is make it a mission to spend some time. I don't care if you're a family of two, sitting down and eating together. And that's kind of what we do, because our mix is designed to make smaller portions that represent that family that's 2 to 4. But I mean, you can make them larger. You just got to quadruple it. So that's our mission. And to do it together and cook together. I see how Taco Tuesdays are big. Well, back in the day, Al, you remember, we had Soul Food Sundays.
Yeah.
It was just natural.
Yeah.
And so I'm on a mission through the Soul Food Starter, our mixes, to bring Soul Food Sundays back.
Awesome. Listen, brother, thank you so much. And hats off to you and your wife and your family, your team. Keep up the good work. Hang out a minute. I'm going to introduce another guest, and maybe we'll get a minute or two. We'll bring you both back in to talk generally about our culture and our people. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm going to continue with my next guest, and that's Mary Terrace. And Mary Terrace has been with me before, a wonderful entrepreneur and educator, the owner of Strive Publishing. I may be saying the name wrong, but you'll correct me. Strive Books, but publishing and books, and I think a new location opening up in the next couple of days. Mary Terrace, good afternoon. Good to see you. Welcome back to The Conversation. How you doing?
Good, and thank you for having me back. Good to see you.
Strive Publishing and Bookstore.
And bookstore, yes.
Yeah. So talk about the new location, first of all. You're opening or just opened a new location?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so our location is in partnership with the Minneapolis Downtown Council. You know, they're trying to bring folks back downtown. There's a whole revitalization movement going on. And our new bookstore is right in the middle of that. It's located in the old Young Quinlan building. And I shouldn't say old, I should say historic. It's a beautiful building. And we're at 901 Nicollet, right on the mall. Our storefront is on the first floor. So we're really excited to be a part of the downtown community, or a larger part of the downtown community.
Now, isn't Barnes & Noble still down there, or are they gone?
Oh, they've been gone for years.
I haven't been downtown for years. That's why I'm asking.
Right. And that's a problem. A lot of people have not been downtown for years. So there'll be some great things happening downtown starting this spring. And I hope you all can come on down and be a part of it, and also support our new bookstore.
What's your passion for books? How did you get in the business, and what did you discover as an entrepreneur?
Well, my passion started when I was a little girl. I always read. Reading was a form of escape for me. And I never saw myself, though, reflected in the books I read. So that left me um, wanting more. I feel like I missed out in terms of being able to be inspired to be someone in this world by seeing myself reflected in books. And I always spent a lot of time and effort to make sure my children, who are all grown now, got books that represented them and books that they wanted to read. Then I got into teaching when I was 40, when all my kids were in school. And I was just really shocked to find out that not much had changed since I was a little girl and since I was raising my children, that it was still a struggle to get authentic and contemporary books that represent Black children, Black families, and contemporary life, really. I really believe that one of the major reasons that we have this reading achievement gap is the fact that in the schools, we don't have the books that the children want to read. If we have books that they were into, I know they would be reading. It's not necessarily that they can't read, and it's definitely not that they can't learn to read, but they need to be inspired and they need to be validated in the books they read.
And the problem is that too much of what we are presenting to children in school is the colonizer's story. And
Right.
that's a story that shows us as the loser,
Mm-hmm.
as the victim, as unworthy, as inhuman from time to time. And a story that falsely elevates white culture, white sensibility at the expense of other people. And so, I ask you, Mary Terrace,
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, as you're discovering and bringing Black authors and bookmakers forward, uh, what do you think the impact is going to be? Are you going to see a real change? Is it a question of getting connections with the school districts and with the libraries around the state so that we put different authors and different images in front of the public in general and our people in particular?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's a very layered question. When it comes to getting more diverse books into the schools and libraries, it's not an easy task. And really, it's going to depend on individual librarians, individual teachers to go out and source these books. And so we really want to be able to help in that. And with our new bookstore, we're going to have a whole section that's about being able to purchase books to donate to school libraries and to donate specifically to classroom teachers to help build and diversify their classroom libraries. So each week we will have a treasure box that gets filled by our customers who purchase books to donate to teachers.
Well, that's awesome. What's the book business like? How difficult is it to, stay in business of selling books? And not only do you sell books, but you create books, right?
Right, right. So I
Talk, talk,
started
talk
out.
about talk about both sides of your business, if you would.
Okay. Well, I often refer to myself as a teacher turned children's book publisher because I felt like the best way to solve a problem would be to create books to fill that gap. However, once I got into publishing, I realized the great expense and a great amount of time goes into just one book. So, since we launched in 2018, we have published 10 books, and which is great, for 10 authors. Um, but we want to have a greater reach, so that's how I got into book selling, so I can curate books to sell that are written by other independently published authors and
Mhm.
also our independent publishers, which I am an independent publisher.
Mhm.
I know how hard it is to get our books into bookstores. So um, we're kind of going around some of the systems that are in place in our new bookstore. We're really going to elevate independent publishers, and it's easier said than done, but we want to create a pathway for independent publishers who represent the most marginalized voices to get their books into the store and out into the community.
Tell me your story again, your personal story, if you would, Mary. You said you became a teacher at age 40. What were you doing
Right.
earlier?
Well, I'm from North Minneapolis. I graduated from North High School kind of by the skin of my teeth because I had my first baby when I was in high school. So that's what I have been up to for years. Is I have 4 children. I've been married and divorced. So for most of that time, I've been a single mother.
Mhm.
But I always worked full time because I wanted to set that example for my children. And once they were old enough, um, I decided to go for a dream that I never told anybody about because I didn't really see very many Black teachers coming up.
Mhm.
And I always dreamed of being a teacher. So in my 30s, I had an opportunity to take a job at Augsburg College, and when what's now Augsburg University.
Mhm.
But when you work for a university, you can get tuition remission. So that's how I started my college journey. It was a long journey. It took me 8 years. That's why I didn't get into publishing until I was 40. But I worked full time and went to Augsburg Weekend College. And when I was 40, I started teaching, and it was just nothing that I ever dreamed it would be.
Did you work with Dr. Francine Chacolis over at Augsburg? Did you know her?
I I did not work with her. No, I had
Okay.
I can't even remember my advisor's name, but I
Mhm.
do remember that when I got pregnant with my last child, I was in weekend college, and
Mhm.
my advisor tried to tell me that I should take a break from college. I was like, "Are you kidding me? I'm almost ready to graduate and
Right.
live my dream. No way."
Mhm. Mhm.
I had that baby and went back to class.
Mhm. And so then you started teaching?
Yes, and I taught for 16 years. I started in the Minneapolis Public Schools in 2004, but they
Mhm.
really had deep teacher cuts back in the early 2000s.
Mhm.
So of course, I was cut as a first year teacher, but
Sure.
I always think that I believe that was my best year teaching ever because I had an amazing EA, education assistant, who helped me to put together this speech competition with my eighth graders. We did
Mhm.
a forensic speech competition. That was amazing. I was able to integrate the curriculum and just make it exciting, make reading and writing and speaking exciting for the children. And I was only able to do that because I got a grant through the Star Tribune. They had really cool grants for teachers back then.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if teachers could get those resources every year, I really believe teaching could be more than what it is. But unfortunately, for the other 15 years of my teaching, I always felt like I was working a part-time job on top of my teaching in
Sure.
order to get the books and resources and people into my classroom that represented Black culture.
Was there resistance to your trying to provide Black-centered, Black-focused content for the children?
Well, I mean, not outright resistance, but resistance in terms of you have to follow the curriculum,
Mhm.
in terms of, okay, we're on this calendar, oh, we got to focus on testing. And the testing, the standardized testing, in my opinion, it steals the joy of teaching and it steals the joy of learning. I mean, we can't do creative things when we have to focus on those three mandates as a teacher.
How do we light that fire, keep the fire lit in our families and in our children? I obviously, as a newspaper person, have a vested interest in promoting literacy, and quite often, I haven't asked it lately, but I've asked the district, how do you support this idea of reading and literacy without supporting the community newspaper? And it seems to me that there ought to be every effort in the institutions, particularly in public education, to engage organizations like yours and
Right.
organizations like mine. I'm producing, the written word every week,
Hmm.
52 weeks a year, new content, and it's about us. It comes from us. It
Right.
celebrates us. It validates us, and it seeks to confirm, the truth of our genius
Hmm.
and of our capacity to overcome and to attain. And that's in an environment that seems to be always bent on tearing us down, marginalizing and suppressing our humanity. And so that's the fight. And it seems to me that if the educational apparatus was sincere, and that probably comes down to us as parents being action oriented and demanding, forcing the establishment to ensure that the assets and resources and tools that we create to explain the world to us be at the center, and be at the center in a way that's financial for the Mary Terrace and the Al McFarlane entrepreneurs. What do you think about that?
Well, I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. The thing is that, you know, a system like the public school system, I don't know how we can make changes when they have contracts with specific publishers. You know, they order in the way they've always ordered. I know there are librarians, school librarians out there, because I've met some who will go out of their way to ensure that they can order from a small publisher and a Black-owned publisher like Strive Publishing. And the only way that they can do that is to take the initiative themselves. So it takes for the individuals within these systems to make an extra effort, just like I had to do when I was teaching. You know, if you just go with the status quo, nothing changes, but you have to make an extra effort as an educator, as parents, as other school personnel, even principals, you know, to find a way to get around doing things the way that they have always been done. You had to make the extra effort.
Do you have any events or projects coming up that you want people to know about? Any special activities?
Yes, definitely. So the new bookstore will be opening on June 2nd. We'll have a special grand opening June 2nd at the Strive Bookstore located at 901 Nicollet, downtown Minneapolis. Prior to that, we are advertising to have folks sign up for memberships, because part of our bookstore plan is to have consistent literary events, you know, bring in authors, have workshops, have spoken word nights, you know, poetry reading, all that. And as a member of the New Strive Bookstore, you'll get first access to that and discounts on books and these events. We have a couple of sneak peek events coming up on March 13th.
May 13th. May
Yes,
13th.
May 13th, this month, May 13th. One of our authors, who's the winner, the first winner of our African American Voices in Children's Literature contest in partnership with Free Spirit Publishing. Her name is Maylena Mongo. She wrote a children's book entitled Jaden's Impossible Garden, and has been very popular for the last 2 years. She's going to come and do a book reading and an activity with the children and introduce her new book, Jaden's Secret Ingredient. So you'll get a sneak peek at her new book on May 14th, and you'll get to meet the author. So it'll be a great family event. Plus, you'll be able to come into the new bookstore space prior to the grand opening. So we have a similar event on May 20th, the following Saturday, where we're going to have author Ari Tyson come in and read from her new YA novel. It's called Saints of the Household. So you'll be able to get her new novel, get her to sign it, meet her, hear, you know, excerpts from the book. So that's all leading up to our grand opening on June 2nd.
I understand that Black books now really are leading the industry. Is that true? That's what I've been hearing, that there is a huge explosion of content coming out of Black authors right now in all genres, and
Yes.
that at the moment, really, it's Black creators that are saving the book publishing industry. Does that make sense, or is that?
That does make sense. Yes, and the Black publishers, you know, there are more Black publishers around than we are aware of, or that are, you know, popular in terms of the industry. So yes, and Black women are the ones who buy the most books I don't know if you guys knew that, but in research, it shows that Black women buy the most books. So they're a great target market, or we're a great target market. And contrary to certain stereotypes, Black people do read.
Yep.
And we appreciate that food for the brain. So, I mean, I know that our brother Booker there, he's making strides and making money selling his soul food. Well, I wonder why we can't make as much money selling books for the mind and soul, you know?
And we got to do them both. Let's bring Brother Booker back in. Brother Booker, let's talk about this now. What do we have to do as a people to benefit ourselves, to create intergenerational wealth, feeding our bodies and feeding our minds? You know, I say, I use the mantra that our health includes the body, the mind, food. Our health is our business. And we, I believe, have to make it our business to feed our bodies, to feed our minds, to be healthy and to grow health and extend health, preserve and protect health in our community. What do you think, Brother Booker?
I agree. I agree. And one of the main things to the first part of that question is we got to be willing to help each other, you know, and I'm not beating up on us, but sometimes those of us who get the blueprint to success, we don't share it, and we got to do better. So it is my goal to have particularly Black folk become, because we got $1.8 trillion spend, but I like to see more of us become makers and publishers or whatever it is. But we got to help each other. If we driving the bus, let some other folk on the bus, and that's what we got to do.
Mary, what do you think, Mary?
Absolutely. I just had a conversation with a colleague of mine this weekend, Dr. Artika Tyner. She's also a Black publisher and bookstore owner. And we were just talking about that very thing, Booker, how we need to be sharing our knowledge and supporting each other. And that's one thing that we're doing with our new bookstore is providing space for other Black publishers, dedicated space within the store to display their books and have their books be sold to the public and join us in community events.
Are either of you or both of you familiar with this new social media platform called Narrative? Narrative with a K, Knarrative.
I am not.
Let me ask you both to take some time today or tomorrow just to go online, Knarrative, and it has a companion social media project called Newbie. I'm wearing their gear right now. I've adopted this as my uniform because I'm so focused on and happy to be part of an online community of our people. And the online community is inviting conversations, inviting relationships around food, around literature, around books. And I think both of you ought to be there just to meet people, and you'll meet the people that you envision that would be waymakers and really champions of the idea of us collaborating, of us celebrating each other and supporting each other. Because I think you both are right. That's exactly what we have to do. But we got to demonstrate it. We got to do it. Can't just talk about it.
That's right. That's right. I jokingly say I'll go to some of these meetings and some of the brothers, I call them Wellera brothers. Wellera and Edera. Come on, man. Let's help our people.
Wellera.
And that's the one thing I was proud that Booker Soul Food Starters, we are unapologetically proud of our African culture, and we're winning. You know, BIPOC right now, Black Indigenous people of color is more than just a trend. It's a hot trend right now, and trends matter. But we got an opportunity to create great authors, publishers, all of this, if we stop fighting each other and come together as a community.
Absolutely.
And Sister Mary, I've been on a book buying binge, and I buy through Black online organizations. I haven't been down to your shop yet, but I'll come down. But I have this idea because I've been so fired up by being part of the narrative community. The narrative has a class called In Class with Carr. Dr. Greg Carr, who's the head of Africana Studies at Howard University, has been working with the co-founder of this project. Her name is Dr. Karen Hunter, and they've created this Africana Studies class. And this guy sits down, Mary, in a room. He's got about 1 million books around him. Where he's sitting at, like sitting in an airplane, like in a cockpit, right? But instead of dials and tubes and all the flight paraphernalia, he's got a room full of books. And as he's lecturing over this 1 hour or 2 hour period every Saturday morning, he'll hit a thought and he say, "Oh," he turns around and grabs a book, shows you the book, and goes to a page. And that's what the source is of this idea. And he'll keep talking and he'll say, "Oh," and turn around, grab another book. Every now and then he says, "Oh, where is it? Where is it?" But he has a phenomenal library. I said, as I watched that, I love that. I love the idea that books mean that much to him, because I just didn't know they mean as much to me as well. So that put me on a book buying binge. I'm buying Black books. And my intent is to be part of what I hope is a movement that Black families ought to have personal libraries.
Yes.
We should treat our books like our wealth. And we establish a values like paintings, right? Like artwork, a book collection that we bequeath to the next generation and the next. But there's no reason every Black family can't be intentional about the acquisition, the storing, and the availability of books that we create from our people in our homes for the purpose of personal edification, but also for the business impact. Our health, our knowledge, our wealth, it's our business. And we take a business attitude. Listen, I'm loving this conversation. Brother Booker, Sister Mary Terrace, thank you both for being here. Such a great time. And obviously, love to have you back again and again and again. Let's talk more about it.
All right. Enjoyed it. I definitely did.
Yes, it was a pleasure hanging out.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. God bless.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. What a great program. That's why I love doing this. I love talking to people, and I learn something with every person I talk to. My goal is to be a good listener and to engage people in a way that lets and allows and supports each person bring in her or his best ideas, their best feeling, their best understanding for your edification and for mine as well. I often have talked about, I tell some people, it's like me and you having this personal, private conversation. But if we're live on the radio on KFAI, for example, this personal, private conversation we are sharing with thousands and thousands of people. The goal is to do that here with our live stream. Have personal, private conversations that feel personal, feel private, meaning they are simply consequential, conversations of substance, real conversations. Well, one way to describe that is to have beautiful conversations, or even calling it divine speech, good speech. I'll come back to that next time because I'm reading a book called Medu Necher. Medu Necher means divine speech, and we'll talk about that down the road as well. Let me bring in my final guest and partner and collaborator on the program today. That's Coach Leah. Hey, Coach Leah. Leah Jean Denley, how you doing? Unmute, please. Unmute.
I promise this whole virtual reality of conversation, you have to say unmute at least one time.
That's right.
My bad, it was me today.
Well, even I do it now. You get to where you're focusing on so many things, and sometimes you don't remember that you've muted. But anyway, it's all good. So good to see you. Coach Leah is the sports editor for Insight News, writing some phenomenal columns for the publication and talking about sports and more. She's also entrepreneurial and a what's the right word for it? Philanthropist, working as educator, working to build community. And what we're going to do is hopefully every Monday have you in just to give us an update. Coach Leah, so I'm turning the microphone over to you. What's on your mind?
So thank you. I'm so excited to be here, which is, of course, why I probably was talking and y'all couldn't hear me at first. But the first thing that I just wanted to say is, and you took yourself off the screen, but Al, you literally took one of my trending topics in your in your hot topics. Sports bra, absolutely phenomenal thought and idea. I am pretty good online friends and now good friends with Alicia J, who was fortunate to interview the owner, and I was just like, this is so amazing, because it's exactly the situation that many of us that are trying to find women's sports to view, we are very challenged by that. It's getting better, but it's still not near as where it should be, because I think too many people in mainstream make assumptions as to what we are interested in as former female athletes or just female sports enthusiasts, because I tell people all the time that most purists of sports love women in the game, because if there's something about how we attack and how we approach athletics that is just a little different. It's not all about the glitz and glamour. It's not all about the money. It's good. Don't get us wrong. But it's not always about just that. It's never what leads. And so, more of us at the table selecting what viewers want to see is going to, I'm sure going to change the game and level the playing field, as we call it. So the other thing that I wanted to mention is, so as you know, I will be launching After the Whistle, Coach Leah's After the Whistle, and we'll be talking about just everything and anything off the court, off the field, from some of your most favorite athletes, present and possibly even future, right? Present, former, and future. And your brother Booker today has got to come and visit us with After the Whistle, especially with him being a former football player. And the thought, his life literally talks, is an ocular demonstration, as my pastor likes to say, of what After the Whistle is. Because even though we love sports, and even though it's something that can open a door, it's not everything that defines us. And it's actually something that's very small of what defines us. And so wanted to say that as well. But let me get into what I wanted to chat about today. Minnesota is on fire. Even though I'm down here in Houston, and I'll give a shout out to my Texans in a minute. But Minnesota is on fire right now because, according to ESPN, the Minnesota Lynx scored an A for their most recent draft of their new Lynx, their new Minnesota Lynx. And their first selection was at the number 2 pick was Diamond Miller from Maryland. And then they had a selection from France, and that was Maya Hirsch out of France, and then Dorka Lucic from UConn, and Bria Bell from South Carolina, and Taylor Soule from Virginia Tech will be joining the Lynx, at least for training camp. Now, one good thing about the Minnesota Lynx in their training camp, a lot of times they may have numbers that are just insane of people wanting to try out to join the Lynx, but with so few roster spots, very few players below the first or second round ever actually make the team. And sometimes even the first round pick doesn't remain a part of a team. But the Minnesota Lynx, if they select you, there was a reason why they selected you. And they have a very good chance of making that final roster. And so I had a chance to watch their press conference. And one thing that I can say about the Lynx, and even though they are retooling, historically, they have very much been we want to get the chemistry right first, because we know that's what's going to get us to the championships. And so we're getting ready to see a bunch more championships for the Lynx. And so I'm so excited about that. But of course, I'd be remiss to not talk about the Vikings because that draft just happened and NFL Network gave them an A. Matter of fact, let me see. An A-. The NFL Network gave them an A- for their draft. And so we got Jordan Addison coming in, Mekhi Blackman, Jay Ward, Jacqueline Rowe, Jared Hall, and Dwayne McBride that will be joining the Minnesota Vikings again, at least for camp. And maybe if they don't make the actual squad, maybe the practice squad and so on and so forth. And so I'm excited to be covering the Vikings again, up close and personal, because my days back with Insight back in the day with Dennis Green and that whole crew was life-changing for me. So again, I want to thank you for that opportunity, but really want to thank the Minnesota Vikings as well for being such an open book for us to tell some of the inside stories, as well as mentoring many young men from North Minneapolis, as I was also serving as a academic coach for Minnesota North and also Park Center High School. And they were just so well receiving of those young high school athletes back in the day. So,
what's the story on our first draft pick, Brother Addison? What can you say about him?
So he's going to definitely be able to complement the star receiver that's with the Vikings already, Justin Jefferson. And so it was one of those things that I don't think the Vikings knew they were going to have this amazing opportunity, but it fell right into their lap. And so I look forward again to doing a deeper dive into that. I'll be moving back and forth, up and down. What is that? 35?
Right.
Houston up to Minnesota. So I look forward to learning more. I don't know enough, but you know, that's one of the, I'm always very curious and want to know what really makes teams tick when it comes to how they're going to win. And a lot of times it's those soft things that don't show up on a stat sheet. But as a very good recruiter, as I've been told, and somebody that understands how to read talent, how to identify talent, and those things that make it work. So that's that unique perspective that I bring, and that I've been gifted to bring, being that I've had perspective at every level of athletics, from a competitor to just loving to watch.
We're down to the last minute or so. Any other thing you want to bring up right now, Coach Leah?
So I just want to encourage folks to subscribe to the YouTube channel for Insight News. We're not quite at our 1,000 subscribers, and we got to get there, people. We got to get there because it opens up a wonderful avenue for more of the type of stories that you're telling in the conversation, and of course the ones that I'll be wanting to tell with After the Whistle. And so I just want to put that out there. And we're looking to launch After the Whistle first Monday of June. So that is going to be super exciting. And we've got some guests lined up for that premiere show that you do not want to miss.
Well, we'll keep promoting this show up till then, because I think it's important to get people on board. Listen, I want to thank you so much for what you do, for your service, your history of being an educator, being a leader, being a confidant, being a marketing person, a philanthropist, an entrepreneur, always focused on creating good for our people and for the world. And I think it's just marvelous what you've set out to do and what you've succeeded in doing. And we're excited to continue our relationship growing the CoachLeah brand. Looking forward to it. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.